Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dale Menyo. Very mild, 63 degrees out. A little bit of a breeze this morning, helping to move some of that harvest dust out of your way. As we check out some of the latest, it looks like dairy herds in Ohio produced 459 million pounds of milk during September. That was up 0.2% from a year ago, according to Ben Torrance, our state statistician at USDA's NAS Ohio field office. Production per cow in Ohio averaged 1,820 pounds for September, up 25 pounds from September of a year ago. The dairy herd number was estimated at 252,000 head for September, down 3,000 from a year earlier. Milk production in our 24 major states producing milk for September totaled 17.5 billion pounds, up 0.2% from a year ago. The August revised production came in at 18.2 billion pounds, and that was up 0.5% from August of a year ago. The August revision represented an increase of 85 million pounds, or 0.5% from last month's preliminary production estimate. The production per cow in the 24 major states was 1,966 pounds for September, 8 pounds above a year ago. The number of milk cows on farms in the 24 major states was 8.89 million head, 20,000 head less than September of a year ago, but unchanged from the August figure. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
We've got a dry couple of days ahead of us yet before some moisture tries to make a run at Ohio. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag Weather Update. Your Wednesday looks great. Thursday, not looking too shabby as well. We are sunny, warm, and dry everywhere. Now, as we move through the overnight to tomorrow night and morning to midday, we do see scattered showers working through Ohio, anywhere from 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch of rain. Coverage around 80% of the state. Moisture is done by sunset. We clear out overnight Friday night. The weekend and early next week looks great. Cool for the weekend as Canadian high pressure sits on top of the Great Lakes. Monday, Tuesday, we get on the backside of that high. Southwest flow is going to be strong and warm us dramatically. That strong southwest flow is going to be ahead of a frontal boundary that gets here next Wednesday. Showers and thunderstorms bringing anywhere from 1/4 to 1.5 inches of rain to all of Ohio. Behind it, we still stay mild for the first day, so Thursday, the 31st, Halloween, but then seeing cooler air try and come across the Great Lakes for the end of that week. In that cool air mass, probably some more clouds for Friday the 1st. I won't rule out a few spits and sprinkles, but I don't think that's the main story. In my mind, the better chance at a second round of precipitation gets into that first full week of November. That's the way your forecast is stacking up. Have a great rest of your day. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Joining me is Andrew Rowland. He's with Rowland Truck and Equipment Incorporated. Tell people where you're located and what kind of business you have.
Hey, Dale. Thanks for the time today. We are located in Western Ohio, Greenville, Ohio exactly, west side of the state, close to Indiana line. We deal in used trucks. We also sell new dump trailers and hopper trailers as well. My dad and grandfather started it in 1987. Today, I have 2 other siblings that run it with me as well, and we do our best to service as many farm customers as also transportation customers as well that we can in the surrounding area.
Well, you know, when I drive through Western Ohio, and we've been over there for several events in the last few weeks, I notice some still are pulling grain wagons down the road. Others seem to only have semis. So you really have to have options for your customers, don't you, on what is preferred not only by them, but in their area.
Exactly right, Dale. Everybody knows the world changes, but some people still have some of the older technology and things like that still work great for their operation. So you got to have a wide variety of trucks, trailers. We still do grain trucks to this day just for guys that still want to build them. You do have to have a vast inventory on hand or at your fingertips for people to choose from that got to pick what works best for them.
Andrew, is there a good website where people could take a look at your inventory and maybe find out more about your services?
Yeah, you can find us at www.rowlandtruck.com.
And that's ROWLAND, correct?
That is correct, yep.
I've been visiting with Andrew Rowland. He's not only owner, but sales manager. Andrew, thanks for the update and telling us about your company.
Thanks, Dale. Appreciate your time today.
In the poultry report, all layers in Ohio totaled 43 million during September, up 5% from a year ago, according to, again, Ben Torrance, state statistician, USDA's NAS Ohio field office. Egg production totaled 1.07 billion eggs, up 6% from last year, and the rate of lay during September was 2,492 eggs per 100 layers. The United States egg production totaled 8.92 billion during September of 24, down 2% from last year. Production included 7.65 billion table eggs and 1.27 billion hatching eggs, of which 1.18 billion were broiler type and 91.3 million were egg type. The average number of layers during September of 24 was 375 million, down 3% from last year. Now, total layers in the United States on October 1 were 377 million, down 2% from last year. The 377 million layers consisted of 312 million layers producing table or market type eggs, 61.5 million layers producing broiler type hatching eggs, and 3.66 million layers producing egg type hatching eggs. Rate of lay per day on October 1 averaged 79.3 eggs per 100 layers, up slightly from a year ago. And let's not forget the turkeys. Turkey eggs and incubators on October 1 of 24 in the U.S. totaled 24.5 million, down 9% from October of a year ago. Turkey pullets hatched during September of 24 in the U.S. totaled 20.4 million, down 5% from September of a year ago. And the 18.2 million net pullets placed during September in the U.S. were down 5% from the number placed during the same month 1 year ago. Back with more after this.
Did you know soybeans' #1 customer is animal agriculture? That includes Ohio's pig farms. Soybeans provide a blend of protein and energy to keep Ohio pig farms growing. Nationally, Ohio ranks 7th in pork production, and those pigs consume 6.3 million metric tons of soybean meal. It takes a lot of soybeans to make that kind of bacon. Soybeans feeding the industry that feeds us. Brought to you by the Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Soybeans grown in Ohio and across the heartland are meeting the feedstock demand for clean fuels. Biodiesel is a clean-burning and reliable fuel that enhances engine life, power, and mileage. Plus, this high-performance fuel works in any diesel engine without modification. With biodiesel, we fuel the economy, do good for the environment, and support soybean farmers. Learn how using biodiesel can add value to every bushel of soybeans grown at soyohio.org. And for all the folks in the blue and gold, the National FFA Convention is underway. We'll have several highlights over the next few days and more coverage on our website at ohioagnet.com. All of our coverage is brought to you by Wilmington College. Let's check in now with Matt Reese.
Lane Baker is a new Lexington FFA member and a proficiency finalist at the National FFA Convention. So, Lane, first off, can you just tell me a little bit of background about your project and what you're working with?
My project started about 5 years ago when we started selling wrapped firewood, to be specific, to Old Man's Cave due to a lack of quality in their product. From there, it really just took off, gaining customers by voice and by letters. We expanded our business to around 8 campgrounds, as well as introducing new product like kindling bundles and stuff like that.
Where do you find your supply?
We do live on a little piece of wooded property. Obviously, with 7-8 campgrounds and all of their firewood coming from us, that doesn't really hold up. We actually get a lot of our firewood from local sellers. We actually partner with a logging company as well, just outside of New Lex. It gives us a lot of their scrap wood.
How do you get your foot in the door with, you mentioned they had a supply issue. How did you get started?
The relationship with the first campground wasn't so much a supply issue as more a quality issue. I just remember we were camping one time and we look over at the other campers. They're struggling to light their store-bought firewood from the camp store, and we're over here with a nice lit firewood from our own house, and we just thought maybe we drop off a bundle, drop off our business card to Old Man's Cave and tell them that if they would like to try out our quality firewood, that we'd be willing to give it a try. It just kind of exploded from there.
How many cords are you going through on an annual basis or whatever increment you keep track of that sort of thing in?
More so than cords, we kind of focus all of our export numberly by wrapped bundles, I guess. And it varies year to year. Like COVID year, we had a bunch because everyone was able to camp. This year, we'll have a lower amount just because of the burn ban that the governor had for so long.
Still, in some places, I believe, right?
They actually told us that campgrounds aren't allowed to sell firewood or have fires for that matter for the rest of the year. So we're actually done selling for this year. During a busy time, I'd say we probably get at around anywhere from 12 to 1,400 wrapped bundles a week.
Wow. And is your busy time fall? Is that when you're the busiest?
I'd say our busiest time is probably like in between the school years. But there's also like busy weekends, such as like Labor Day weekend or even holiday weekend for that matter. Along with the season, there's a bunch of like specific dates that we look out for each year.
I've been talking with Lane Baker. He's from the New Lexington FFA chapter. I appreciate your time today and good luck.
Thank you.
Time now for the Louis Dreyfus Grain Analysis, brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished out Tuesday on a higher note. Double-digit gains in soybeans, 4 to 7 higher in corn, and wheat markets got in on the action, 2 to about 5 higher overall. Multiple different headlines to kind of run through from Tuesday. Let's start on the weather side of things. Decent rain coming into the South American crop areas, and not only in northern parts of Argentina, but into Brazil. Northern Brazil can see some fairly significant rains here if the forecast holds true over the next 10 days. Upwards of an inch and a half or so. That really got folks excited with regards to seeing planting get underway in a big, big way. All right, other stories yesterday. Let's start with flash sales. USDA reported a flash sale of 359,500 tons of corn to Mexico for the 24-25 crop year. Remember, there were plenty of flash reported sales yesterday, or rather Monday as well, in addition to yesterday's. Can we see more today, 3 days in a row? That would be nice, but I'm just not sure what we're going to come up with here. Grain futures, we're trying to chop back and forth. Last week it was on polls that suggested one candidate was doing better than the other. Over the weekend it showed that the other candidate was regaining ground, and so these polls are probably not a big harbinger of things to come in the grain markets, but outside market flow and money flow based on what inflation does and whether we want to go into commodity-based assets or paper assets. That's been the biggest thing here. What we saw yesterday was a big push higher for funds on the corn side of things. Remember, we heard about open interest increasing last week when the markets were down, suggesting new shorts were coming in, but we saw big fund short covering and maybe even going a little bit long on the corn side as well. As noted by the brokerage estimates yesterday, big buying in wheat, corn, and soybeans. Corn at midday was over 12,000 contracts. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. I'll dive into the overnight figures after this.
If your road trip leads you to Ohio's farm country, be sure to share the road with Ohio's farmers. Farm machinery moves slowly, makes wide turns, and needs extra space to avoid obstacles like mailboxes and guardrails. Let's all be mindful and make sure everyone gets home safe and sound this year. This message brought to you by the Ohio AgNet, OSU Extension Ag Safety and Health Team, and this station.
Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. In the overnight figures, December corn up 1/4 cent at 4.16 3/4. March now unchanged at 4.29 1/4. May also unchanged at 4.36 3/4. November soybeans down 1.50 after yesterday's bump higher at 9.90 1/4 cent. January 9.99 1/2 down 1 penny. And March beans are up 1/4 cent at $10.12 3/4. In the wheat, December down 1 3/4 at 5.74 1/4 cent. July new crop down 1 3/4, trading 6.11. In livestock, December cattle trading 188.05. That's up $1.05. December up $1.30 at 188.12, and February up $1.20 at 188.82. December lean hogs $79.12, up 85. February up 55 at $82.80, and April 86.22, up 30. The feeder cattle for November up $2.32 at $248.92, and January feeder cattle $246.05 up $1.80. Speaking of livestock, whether you talk to cattlemen or day traders or someone who fancies themselves with the business in between, we all learn tricks about cattle market and how to trade along the way. And one of those tricks that the market full-heartedly respects is that whenever a cattle on feed report is set to be released, you'll typically note more caution in the market throughout the futures complex, and we'll see one of those reports later this week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dale Minio. This is the Ohio AgNet.